Yeah. So hi, everyone. Welcome to Big Green's first workshop of the school year. This is session 1 of our back to school workshop. We're so happy to have you all here. If you're new to Big Green is essentially a network of 200 learning gardens across Chicago, and we hope that these learning gardens can help students become healthier by increasing their food literacy. So in certain times, we're happy to be able to provide you with this virtual content. We know that this has been a super hectic and uncertain time for many of you all with COVID-19, with an uncertain timeline for getting back into schools, and with the importance of growing food becoming more pertinent than ever. So we're so happy that you're all able to be here today. This virtual workshop will only be about 50 minutes long because we want to be cognizant of your time. And before we get started with the actual workshop, just a few housekeeping items. We welcome you to share your video if you want to feel more connected, but we also ask that you keep your sound on mute if possible. If you have any questions, please message them in the chat box. We will be reviewing the chat box and answering any questions at the end of each section. And if you have any technical errors that need troubleshooting, please send a private chat to Sam, who will be running tech support today. So just to introduce you to our Big Green team, on our team, we have our program coordinators, Catherine, Alana, and Amina. We have our program manager, Sam, our development manager, Laura, and I'm Grace. I'm interning with Big Green Chicago this summer. So today is session 1 out of our 3-session back to school workshop series. So today we'll be talking about fall preparation and planting. Our next session, which is on Thursday, September 24th at 4 p.m., we will be talking about home growing techniques and activities. This will be hosted in conjunction with Chicago Grows Food, and parents are also welcome at this session. Our 3rd session will be on Thursday, October 8th at 4 p.m., and this will be covering garden and food-based lessons for the virtual classroom. So our agenda for today, after this introductory session, we'll be breaking into breakout groups, which will be focusing on harvesting summer vegetables in the learning garden, or removing weeds and cover crops in the learning garden, or container gardening and other activities that you can do at home in your garden. We'll also be covering techniques for virtual lessons in the garden afterwards as a big group again. Then we'll be having a Q&A session before wrapping up. So just a little icebreaker to get us all started. Do you plan to visit your school's learning garden this fall? Feel free to share your plans for this fall in the chat.
Okay, great. I'm seeing lots of people that are interested in visiting their garden this fall, which is amazing. So as you think through either what your plans are already or what you aspire to plan to do, for the next portion of our workshop, we're going to be breaking into groups. So the first group, which will be Group A, those are folks that if you want to join in with Alana, she's actually in a garden right now. She's going to be demonstrating how to harvest some of those fall crops that are still coming in. So if you're interested in learning more about harvesting fall crops and transitioning from an active summer garden, you'll want to be in group A. And in just a minute, I'll tell you how to join the groups. Group B is if you're thinking that your garden has been, letting nature take its course all summer. There may be some weeds, maybe you had a cover crop, and you want to either incorporate that for a garden lesson or either see what to do next. That's going to be group B. And then group C is going to be if you're not sure, you don't think you're going to visit the garden and you want to learn a little bit about container gardening and some other like no contact ways we can incorporate garden lessons into the classroom. So you're going to choose group A, B, or C. So again, A is the active summer garden, B, cover crop or weeds, and C is container gardening. And the way we're going to do the groups is we're actually going to have you change your Zoom name to designate that letter in front of your name. So if you look at my name, you can see I've put group C in front. So if you already know how to change your name, either put A, B, or C, you can go ahead and do that. And if not, I'm going to show you on the next few slides how you can change your name. Alrighty, cool. Well, I will go ahead and dive into it. The next portion of our workshop, we're just going to talk through a few techniques for virtual lessons in the garden. So those of you that broke out into groups that were live, you got a taste of what it's like to teach from the garden, but we're going to go through a few tips and tricks that we've kind of learned along the way this summer from our experience teaching virtually for some parents and community groups. So my first tip would be to utilize existing resources and videos. So of course, it would not be a Big Green workshop if I wasn't plugging our website and online resources. So of course we have biggreen.org, our old classic with the educator resources tab. And in that tab, we actually have a video library that you can search through. We've also got this down here, the resource database. This was formerly called the Greenhouse, and that actually has like a search, so you can type in. So if you're specifically looking for something about spinach, you can type in spinach. Or if you want to look for K through 12 or K through 2 resources, you can type that in. So the resource database is searchable, and the video library just is a grid of all of our videos. I've showed one here. This is Elisa with an upcycled containers for planting and starting seeds. This was a video that went on our other website, which is called biggreenathome.org. So there's lots of videos there as well. But of course, there's tons of great garden how-to and garden lessons for kids just on YouTube if you do a simple search. There's lots of great organizations, especially during COVID, that have been working to make lots of video resources. So I would encourage you to, if you do want to incorporate some sort of garden lesson into your classroom, to start there with looking at what already exists. But if you want to make your own video and or teach from the garden, there's some options. First of all, one of the challenges might be that you're out there alone. So in this video that Alana made about potting up some tomato seedlings, she used the selfie mode or flipped her phone on her camera, or the camera on her phone. But then you'll notice she put it on this little table. That can help a lot if, for viewers of a video, just to have something to stabilize it on. If you can put it on like a bench in the garden, or, if you're doing a cooking demo at home and you can put it on like a table or something like that. That's a good option. Another option, which we do for a lot of our videos when we can, is to use a friend, preferably someone that either observes social distancing or wears a mask or is in your household. But this is probably the ideal situation if you're gonna film something from the garden, because it allows the subject to be a little bit more engaging. The narrator can kind of point out things. You can get different angles. That's a great way to make garden videos is as a pair. In general, if you're going to record, from your garden and then take it back to your classroom later, it can be helpful to kind of film extra footage and then go back and like cut stuff out. Using iMovie or even on your phone, you can pretty easily like trim videos down. And then another option is if you don't have a buddy to help you film, you can actually just film everything on your phone and then go back and either play that video live for your students and kind of talk through it, or even like add a voiceover to kind of explain what you were doing in the garden. And then to give you a few more tips about live video demonstrations, I'm gonna pass it over to Alana, who is still in the garden at Farragut.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So you can see I'm in two places in this screen. I have my computer here, and I also have my cell phone. And the computer is a great way to manage the chat, see everyone's faces, present a little bit more calmly. Sometimes it gets a little difficult with my phone to manage things like chat. But the great thing about your phone is that you can take it on the road. So here I have the ability to flip my camera and show you all the growth of these tomato plants.
Oh, sorry, Alana, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. Sam, can you spotlight her video that's on her phone?
I think I just did.
Cool, you got it. For me, it was the computer for some reason, but you're good now, Alana.
Awesome. So this is a nice way to be able to kind of narrate the things that you're seeing in real time. For example, this tomato plant has a lot of water. The water content so high that the tomato is splitting. Not a problem for eating the tomato, flavor is the same. So things like that, having the phone and the computer desktop is really handy for doing live instruction. So that is what I'm doing today.
Awesome, thank you, Alana. And with that, I believe we're going to open it up for a little Q&A. So if you have any questions, and it looks like we've already got a question about fall seeds, you can feel free to pop it in the chat, or you can also unmute and feel free to just ask away. Sam, I'm gonna toss the one about fall seeds to you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we were going to cover this in the kind of the next steps of the workshop, but I can just announce it now. We are in the process of working with Johnny's. I'm sure if you follow seed companies at all during, especially the early stages of the pandemic, were totally swamped, and they're actually still recovering from the incredible demand that there is right now for seeds. They are excited to continue to donate seeds to all of you through Big Green. We just don't yet have the shipment of seeds in. So as soon as we do have the fall seeds in our hands, we will be reaching out to everybody. We'll be setting up some distribution opportunities for everybody to pick up your seeds. And of course, if you are in desperate need for seeds now, you want to get out in the garden, we have plenty of cover crop seeds at our disposal that we can share out with everybody. And we also have a handful of vegetable crops that are appropriate for the fall that we can connect with you and make sure that you have what you need to get growing. So we'll have all of our contact information up on the screen shortly if you don't know how to reach out to any one of us to make sure that you have what you need.
And that's in line. If you wanted to plant spinach or other winter greens right now, would you recommend direct sow or sowing them indoors first?
Yeah, I think there's still plenty of time. I would just get them going right in the ground. Anything that really likes cooler weather, I'm thinking about like spinach would be especially one. Really make sure that you're keeping the moisture level of the soil like high and consistent as much as possible. So like on a warm day, a warm windy day like today, like maybe even watering it twice. I know that's a lot, but just for like that first that first push to get things germinated and growing, that extra water in the beginning on the warm days before the temperatures get down will give you a big boost into the fall.
Okay, I don't want to hog up the time, but I have one other quick question. In terms of like going over the same places where you had other vegetables this summer and you're kind of like yanking out those summer plants, you want to put the fall crop over it. Do you need to amend it before you're adding like those seeds or seedlings or?
It's a good idea, yeah, especially after, if you're putting in a fall crop after a crop that's a heavy feeder. So like any of the squash plants, the tomato plants, the big leafy greens, those typically are pulling a lot of nutrients out of the soil. Those would be great examples of crops you'd want to fertilize after kind of removing them and before you put in the next crop. If you don't have fertilizer, again, let us know. We have a little bit of fertilizer on hand. We don't have enough for all of our schools, but definitely want to prioritize those of you who are actively growing vegetable crops this fall. So if you're reaching out, let us know, and we can make sure you have what you need over the next couple weeks.
So I will come back to my previous question about the cover crops. We had the cover crops over the summer, and I'm not sure how long we can keep them in and what should we do following.
Yeah, you can leave them, and they will.
Okay.
They're all of the cover crops that you've planted are annuals. So the buckwheat, the oats, the peas, they'll all complete their life cycle and die. The disadvantage of just leaving them is that once those seed heads mature, they will fall into the soil and you will have those crops coming back again, right? Which could be your advantage, but if you're trying to grow vegetables, you might have some oats that would be considered a weed because they're competing.
That's always wonderful to have some visitors.
Exactly. If you would like to keep things living more and like green through the fall, there's nothing wrong with just like, I wouldn't do anything other than smother, like smush, like break those plants down, leave them on the surface of the soil. They will act as the mulch to protect the soil, and just poke seeds into the soil underneath through the mulch, and buckwheat, peas, or oats all have enough time to get established and grow and continue to support the soil through the fall.
And just so that smooshing process, would that happen now, or would you wait for them to get a little wilted and tired? Because we've been watering up until last week, so they're all doing more or less okay. We were watering once a week, and we got some help from Mother Nature. So just smoosh them now. And
well, if the garden's green and alive and thriving, just let it be. Those, I'm sure, that's a great habitat for insects. And
absolutely. I do a garden club only, so I don't know if we're going to restart it virtually or not. That conversation hasn't happened yet, and I have no way of knowing how many teachers would like to use the garden for their purposes. So I just want to make sure that I do right by the space. So whenever we're ready to restart it, it's ready to do that for, everybody's benefit.
Yeah, it sounds like what you've described is like a healthy, lush, verdant crop of cover crops.
We have some beautiful begonias that are blooming. It's so gorgeous. And the little blue flowers that were part of the last year package, they are extremely drought resistant. So I even experimented with them, how long they can last without water, and they're remarkable. And they bloom, they keep blooming. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds like borage. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Or maybe backwards buttons.
I'm sorry, I don't know the name of that flower. I'm familiar, like visually, I've seen that before, but I'm not familiar with the name. They were in this, if it helps, they were in a circular pot in the middle.
Yeah, are they little like star-shaped flowers? Yes. Blue star-shaped flowers? Yeah, that's borage.
Yes, they're lovely. So, so smoosh them and then put more seeds in.
Or just leave them, or just
Okay.
let them keep growing.
Let them keep growing. Okay, we'll do that, and see where, you know, the teachers are with their plans.
Yeah,
Good.
we're trying to be as patient as we can with teachers.
I know. That's why I just want to keep it going. So if they're ready, you know, I can be there to assist.
Excellent. Dominica.
Okay, that's all. I will shut up now.
I think we have time for just a few more questions. Our wrap up is going to be pretty short. So we still have about 15 minutes left on the call if there's any other questions.
I have a question about how do you utilize buckwheat, basically?
So buckwheat is interesting. Typically, we're not recommending that the buckwheat be used to harvest and eat the way that you typically would eat buckwheat if you were buying the grain or the seeds as a flour or as a hulled buckwheat for like buckwheat groats, if you know, whatever you're cooking buckwheat with. The process of dehulling buckwheat is very challenging. Even local commercial growers have a hard time dehulling buckwheat, and they mill it with the hulls on it. So that's why it's very hard to get local whole buckwheat. You really can only get the flour. So we've recommended growing it mostly because it is a wonderful cover crop. It grows very, very quickly. It'll outcompete all of the weeds in the garden. It adds a ton of organic matter into the soil when you till it under. And also the white flowers are beautiful, and bees absolutely love buckwheat. You can actually even just buy buckwheat honey that has been, you know, made by bees that are foraging fields of buckwheat. So it's beneficial to the garden in so many ways that we've included it as an option for cover crop, not as an example of a small grain that could be eaten, but not with the intention that you as a school are growing it to dry the seed heads and clean the seeds and, you know, process them and mill them. I think that's, if there's a teacher interested in doing that, we have some connections through the Artisan Grain Collaborative to work with some folks who have some small mills and things like that to help support that work. But I think for the average educator, I think that challenge is kind of above and beyond the normal garden tasks.
Could I just chime in for 1 sec? The buckwheat honey is superior in terms of just like being able to help you out with the flu. I always have that on hand for winter. And also last year it was really hard to find. I guess the buckwheat crops there weren't as many crops, so it was really hard to find like true buckwheat honey and not something where they just added some molasses to regular honey. And then in its processed form, buckwheat is a good alternative to wheat. Well, it's actually not really truly wheat. And a lot of people with celiac eat buckwheat. You know, it has like that same kind of taste or whatever. And, you know, it's gluten.
Kelly, thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, buckwheat is such a fantastic crop to grow for all the reasons you mentioned as a food. Or as a source for food, and also for the soil. Yeah, it's wonderful. And if you can help, you know, if you're growing buckwheat in your garden and you have cover crops growing and you want to introduce young people to the importance and value of buckwheat kind of in our agricultural system as a food product and in support of regenerative agriculture, please reach out. We have some great information on buckwheat that we shared in our cover crop regenerative agriculture workshop this past fall. We'd be happy to share that slide deck with you. All right, any other questions before we move on to wrap up? We can maybe let you all reclaim a few extra minutes of your day. All right. So as I mentioned before, we were sharing our contact information. Here are all of the Big Green program team here in Chicago's email addresses and phone numbers. If you'd like to take a screenshot of this, be our guest. We will be sharing out this video and slide deck afterwards. We are also working on, we know that there's been a lot of transition on our team due to the kind of impacts of COVID-19 and just a lot of transitions in the world in general. So we're trying to make communication as easy as possible right now. We're working on rolling out a new email address for just like a helpline for all of our teachers to be able to reach any of us. And again, as we kind of develop some of these newer resources to support you all and activate them, we'll share that information out to our whole network. And then just to wrap things up, the link actually is not available. You can't unfortunately click on the hyperlink, but we do have a survey for today. Grace, if you have a second, could you add the link into the chat just to make it easy for people to navigate to?
Yeah, I'm gonna get the link.
Thanks so much. And then while Grace is taking care of that, we mentioned seed and fertilizer distribution. I also want to point out that we have been working with a collaborative group called Chicago Grows Food. They are going to, members of the group are going to be helping us to present our next workshop that we're hoping to have a lot of parents represented in that audience. So if you'd like to invite families from your classrooms or share the invitation out more broadly with your entire school community, we're going to live stream this next workshop on Facebook Live so that a much broader audience can attend and talk about fall growing techniques. And part of that work with Chicago Grows Food has been distributing home grow kits. During the summer, we did 5-gallon grow bags with soil and seeds that were able to be grown in home. This year, this fall, we have a fairly small amount of grow bags at our disposal, and we're working to increase that number. And so we'll be reaching out, and if you're interested, you can send us some emails and let us know. Right now, we unfortunately don't have enough to offer everybody, but we'll do our best to get as many of your classrooms supported as possible with a 1-gallon grow bag that comes with soil and seeds and an activity book. It'll all come in one cardboard box as a tool that you can use remotely with your students so that you can have a kit at home and they can have a kit at their homes, and you can be working virtually to be growing, to be making observations. It's a really great addition to support Ready, Set, Grow curriculum resources if you're utilizing any of our curriculum, or for high school Real Food Lab, which are all now available on our website. So we will be sharing more information with that as we get it. And if it's something you're really excited about, just feel free to email us and we'll add you to our list of people who we're prioritizing. Grace has added the link to the survey into our chat. Please take 1 minute. It's a short survey. We'd love to hear from you, any feedback you have about this workshop, any feedback you have on workshop topics that would help you, help support you as you're adapting to remote learning and thinking about incorporating the garden into that work. Your feedback is really crucial to help us continue to support you all with the most relevant, best content that we can provide. I already mentioned our next workshop on Thursday, September 24th. It'll be in the evening at 4 p.m. with Chicago Grows Food. We're going to be talking about home growing techniques and adapting containers that you're growing at home for the fall and through the winter. And our last session which will be at the beginning of October, is going to talk really about those lessons, the curricular content that we've been developing and adapting to support remote learning, both for K through 8 and 9 through 12 grades, as well as the additional Big Green at Home content that is continuing to evolve. And that pretty much wraps up our workshop for today. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you taking some time out today. Yes, we will, exactly. Thanks, Kelly, for asking that question. Ms. Galvin just asked in the chat if we'll be sharing out a link. Yes, just like we did for this workshop, we'll send out an email with the live link to the Facebook page. We're also going to be sending out a flyer, a digital flyer that you can email out to your families with that information, so that it's easy to communicate and share with your communities. If there are any other questions, we can stay on for another couple minutes, but that concludes our workshop for today. Thank you all so much.